In this video, I'm going to delve into the very important topic of voice loss, why it happens, the effects on people when it does happen, and crucially, how you can come out of voice loss into restarting your voice and developing it further. So what happens when people lose their voice? Well, people can lose their voice for many reasons. Perhaps the most obvious reason is laryngitis. Laryngitis is when the vocal folds become inflamed. Most typically, this will be because of an infection or a virus. And to varying degrees, if it travels down to where your vocal cords are, it will lead to voice loss. Usually the voice typically starts to get hoarse, and then it will get deeper and deeper, and then eventually it just disappears for a while because the cords become so inflamed, they just can't vibrate in their normal way. And the very, very best thing to do in that time is to just avoid all voice use. In fact, often you won't have a voice anyway, but avoid trying to push the voice and just let your voice rest. Just resting all round when you have an infection or a virus is the best thing anyway. And the more you can rest and not voice, even when you feel that it's going, rather than pushing your voice through, that will help the voice heal quicker. So typically after 2 days, 3 days, maximum about a week after laryngitis, then the voice will start to return, and it will probably sound a little bit shaky in the beginning and then go on to return to its normal state. But there are many medical reasons why people lose their voice. For example, following a long surgery, when people are intubated, that can be a reason why the vocal cords lose a bit of function for a while and you might not have a voice for a little while. Usually it's temporary and you might get to see a therapist who can help you with that. There can be certain neurological conditions that affect voice and perhaps make it weaker and weaker, and at times it might just eventually get so weak that it doesn't come out. And perhaps less understood is the effect of trauma on the vocal tract and the vocal folds and the larynx generally, because that can also lead to voice loss, and all different types of trauma can lead to voice loss. And it's not always obvious why. So voices can disappear for a number of reasons, be they medical, just through sickness, for emotional reasons or trauma reasons. And sometimes when they disappear, they can stay away for a long time. It can be weeks and sometimes months for people, and even years. So any length of voice loss can be quite scary for a person. When it's just due to a flu or a virus, that's a little bit easier to deal with. But even then, you just cut off socially from speaking to people. In that time, you might need a rest. But if you're not sure why your voice has gone, or if you've recovered a long time since your operation and your voice still isn't working, that can start to be a real source of frustration for people. And if there's trauma involved as well, or sometimes if there isn't, but the voice is just not working properly or it's disappeared, it can be very isolating for people and really frustrating. And one of the questions I'm asked a lot is, can my voice come back? Will my voice come back? You know, I've had no voice for so many weeks now, is one of the things I hear all the time. But actually voice loss is something that can be worked on very easily by a skilled speech and language therapist, because we're used to seeing voice loss as part of our caseload. When a voice has been absent for a certain amount of time, it's important to do some exercises which encourage the vocal cords to start working again. And voice specialist speech and language therapists will try quite a few techniques, and usually we can find a technique that will help to restart that person's voice. Different things work for different people. So we just keep trying things to get the voice restarted. And it's a funny thing, but restarting the voice is a bit like starting a car that doesn't want to start properly. It's a bit hit and miss. A little bit might come out and then nothing comes out. And so it's just working through that and just keep trying to just get more and more voice coming out over time. And it's also the case that for many people, voice return can be very dramatic and very quick. Just as voice loss can be very dramatic and very quick for some people, other people might lose their voice over time. Some people might just lose their voice quite dramatically. And just as it can be lost dramatically, it can be restored quite dramatically. It's true to say that in some cases, the voice return happens in the very first session of therapy. In other cases, it might take 3 or 4 sessions, and in some cases, longer. Once the voice has been restarted and it's starting to flow back quite easily and quite steadily, it's sometimes the case that people want to work on their voice to make it stronger and to develop it further. And I certainly like to take people to the point where they can actually use their voice in a quite bold way for times when they need to, so that they can then trust that their voice is going to be there for them. and they have steps to do if there is any instance of voice loss again. So I'd like to reassure you that voice loss can seem devastating for whatever reason, but in most cases, it is definitely true that it can come back with the right guidance. So do seek professional help and get your voice back. If you found this video helpful, press the like button and subscribe to the channel.